As I was walking in the woods today on my hike, I was observing the trees, the living trees, the dead trees. You'll see some in my background here in a second. I was looking at the old trees and the young trees, the tall trees and the short trees. And I was thinking about the categories that I placed each of those in. And it kind of dawned on me that when I look at them as individuals, those categories are appropriate. But when I look at the forest as a forest and not as the individual trees and plants and rocks and whatever, then the categories and the importance of those categories begin to dissolve into a kind of oneness. The tree that has fallen over may be dead on an individual level, but it's part of a greater living thing, the forest itself. It gives home to insects, to critters, to animals, to plants, to different types of fungus, and it produces life even in its death. The tall trees and the smaller trees, they have a wisdom to share as well. And the wisdom is this: they can't grow through their own ability. They can't sustain themselves through their own ability. They just are. They just exist. And they depend upon the rain and the sunshine and the wind and other living things to reproduce and to grow and to stay strong and to maybe die young, get blown over. I mean, I don't know. But there's this sense in which they don't depend upon themselves, right? They depend upon the Creator. They depend upon the creation of the Creator. And I thought about Philippians chapter 2 and how Philippians 2 says that we're to work out our own salvation. But then a few passages later, he says, but it is God who is working in you. Just like the trees, just like the forest around me, right? It's not about what the tree itself can do. It's what God is working in that tree through the nutrients that he provides. And I thought about the saying of Jesus in Matthew 5. He first says that God sends the sunshine and the rain, which is a blessing in an agricultural society, upon the just and the unjust. As he says in Luke chapter 6, he sends it upon the good and the evil. And for this reason, Jesus says, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. The lilies of the field, consider these. They don't dress themselves in the morning. They don't have to buy expensive clothes. God clothes them, and God takes care of the sparrow that flies in the air. And if God does all of this, then what do we have to worry about? See, this wisdom of allowing God to plant you, allowing God to give the increase, is very difficult to consent to, because we want so much to be in control. And yet here this forest has existed for thousands of years, or however long, and not once has it been because of its own ability. And yet look how hard we try. We try so hard to grow a church. We try so hard to be the perfect parent. We try so hard to be the perfect student. When we need to adopt the saying of Paul in Philippians 4 and the idea behind Jesus' sermon in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and just learn to be content in everything that we do, because it's a bit of a cliche, but we sometimes say or wear a t-shirt that says, let go and let God. But there's some truth behind that. Just the evidence is all around us. We just have to have eyes to see and hearts to receive. God wants us to thrive. Maybe not materially, maybe not athletically, but spiritually, God wants us to thrive. And the secret to that is not attempting to thrive. I have a podcast called Exploring Faith, Pursuing Grace. You don't pursue grace. The art there is to slow down enough for it to catch up to you. It's something that overwhelms you. As Paul said in 2 Corinthians 5, love is something that controls you. It constrains you. It's getting to the point where you study, learn, because you have to have it figured all out. And then one day it hits you, wait, what am I even doing? This is all vanity. This is all vanity. Yes, it's great to know things. Yes, it's great to have that knowledge and to increase in the knowledge of the scriptures. But in the end, if your motivation is to become more secure, if your motivation is to get into heaven, then you've missed it, because you have to learn to be content in all things, because it's Christ that strengthens us. It's Christ that gives us the peace, not our ability. We can't force these trees to grow. We can't force this forest to exist. Now we can take it out of existence through abusing our role as the caretakers of the world, but this forest exists based off God's power alone. Why can't we learn to do that? That's tough. I'm still working on that one. But anyways, if you ever want to join me on the trail and you live in Northeast Alabama, holler at me. Let's have some fun. See ya.